After nearly 50 years in the North American market, Volkswagen is killing the Passat after the 2022 model year. We got a lot to talk about. Just a brief history lesson on the Passat. In 1973, Volkswagen brought it here not as a Passat, but as the Audi Fox. Later, it was called the Volkswagen Dasher and then the Quantum. In 1988, Volkswagen finally decided to call it the Passat globally, and that included North America. In 2011, Passat split in two different forms. In North America and in China, it was called the NMS. The European Passat had a much more premium aspect. That's a beautiful car right there. The Euro model had a more premium platform. And in 2019, the American-Chinese NMS model split again. We got a redesign on that same NMS platform, you could say, while the Chinese Passat went to the MQB platform, a more modern, more luxurious platform. It is still currently on sale in China and in Europe and in other parts of the world, but it is discontinued after this model year for 2022. So what we have with us today is a very special model. We have racing green metallic. It's really hard to tell that it's green. My wife picked it up before I did, and this is the limited model. That's all you can tell from the outside, as well as the 19-inch wheels are specific to this model and the black capped mirrors. And there's not a lot to say about the Passat. My wife thinks it's hideous. I think it's a very average looking car. It's not going to blow anyone's minds. It's the most fade in the background vehicle you're probably ever going to see on the road. Underneath the hood is a 2-liter turbo, a little over 170 horsepower, a little over 200 pound-feet of torque. Made it to a 6-speed automatic, but I want to go over a couple features with this special edition. We do have some nice leather seats in this special edition. Volkswagen Chattanooga, that's where they've built this vehicle since 2011, now on that NMS platform we were talking about. And it's one of 1973, again, alluding to its first production year coming out of Germany. Also a little feature here, the cup holder inserts. It's a map of Chattanooga and the plant where they produce this vehicle. This has also been exported from the Chattanooga plant to South Korea, the Middle East, and other parts of the world, and it is meeting its end here in 2022. I'm sure they'll be producing EVs out of that Chattanooga plant. Would not be surprised. Now we have this kind of wood trim in here. I think it looks good. I don't like brown seats traditionally, but I think it goes well with the exterior paint. That looks black in most circumstances. When the sun hits it, you can see that there's some green speckle in it. Turning down the AC, yes, we have traditional knobs in here. Go figure, in an older discontinued Volkswagen, we actually have physical knobs and dials. If you sit in a newer Volkswagen, especially the ID4 or the new Golf, gosh, it is a rough experience in there because nothing is functional. You have to go through the touchscreen and the menus, etc. And guess what? We don't have touch capacitive steering wheel buttons. We have real buttons that feel so good. So it is a very excellent experience in here just to get in and drive. You don't have to think. It's very simple and intuitive. The steering wheel is okay. It's on the skinnier side. It needs to hit the gym. Behind the steering wheel, we have a very basic MID. It does have radar cruise control. Some of those safety features will pop in on the MID. Very basic tachometer and analog speedometer as well. Now heading to the infotainment, this might be one of the small screens currently in production. We have, luckily, Android Auto functionality. It works fine, of course. And of course, these are actually touch buttons. The strange thing is if I'm in my Android Auto and I want to use the tuning, well, it just controls the touchscreen portion. So I would have to go back to radio and tune this way, but most of the time you're going to have your presets set and you can use the button on the steering wheel to go through those presets. My phone is plugged into the USB behind here. We have a 12-volt accessory port. This is how you turn on the engine. You have the shifter here, which is, I love traditional shifters. You also have parking assist feature, which I never try out in vehicles because it's typically a headache, but you have that if you can't park yourself. And you also have parking sensors, traditional handbrake, and it feels really high quality, good quality leather around it. One of the funny things is if you want to make sure your mirrors aren't getting frosted over, you twist this knob all the way to the heated mirror. Typically, you don't see mirror control on the door panel itself. You typically see it on the armrest where the window buttons are. So a bit strange there. You open up the trunk here and you open up the hood with that latch over there. We have a very small sunroof, but at least we have one nonetheless. And actually, the sunroof controls in here are excellent. Yes, we have a rubber matted sunglasses holder, but you push this up and it tilts, which is great. You push it down and it tilts back down. And we have different steps for the sunroof. So if I just twist it once, it closes just like an inch. Again, another inch. It's a bit ridiculous, but I kind of like playing with it. And then just to close it, you twist it all the way. The vanity mirror with a light, that's a premium touch. We're gonna get in the back seat. And let me tell you guys, this back seat is quite accommodating for tall people. So the seat is set up for me 6'1", and I just have an immense amount of space back here. Map pockets on each side, USB-A's over here, and outboard heated seats, 3 settings each. We also have some ventilation going back here, so it is a very nice experience. The door panel looks the same as it does in the front seat, and I could probably take a nap back here. We do have some attention to detail just like we do on the front, and a large drive shaft that goes through the middle. This is front wheel drive vehicle, no all-wheel drive on the Passat here in North America. These seats do fold down to give you guys a little bit more cargo space if you need it. There's a ton of cargo space in that trunk, and I think it's time to start driving the last year of the Volkswagen Passat. Driving in the Passat is a fairly uneventful experience. You know, Volkswagen killed this vehicle after declining sales, and it doesn't help that sedan sales are not the greatest. You know, this vehicle in its prime was selling over 100,000 vehicles a year here in North America, and we just don't have that anymore. And when you start driving this vehicle, the first thing you notice is how light the steering is. Not only is the steering wheel like pencil thin, it is a very light steering experience. It's almost hard to keep the vehicle going straight, because just putting your hand on it, the steering wheel just wants to turn instantly, just with a little bit of weight to one side. So this is almost like a two-hand driving experience just to make sure the steering is balanced. Throwing around this U-turn here, there are no beachgoers, so I can actually throw it through the turns. It does feel big, but it's not that heavy. So, you know, this, if off the top of my head, it weighs around 3,400 pounds, which isn't that much for a full-size sedan. So it does feel lighter than what it looks like from the outside. That dog was getting his doo-doo on. Now, on paper, this little turbo 4-cylinder seems underpowered for a large sedan, but I'm just gonna hammer down. And yeah, it does seem underpowered. With the 6-speed, it doesn't have a lot of gears to pick from, and it was actually pretty lethargic even picking a gear to downshift. Now, if I put it into sport mode, which is just one shift down on this traditional shifter, I'm just gonna hammer down. Still a delay, and yeah, it's not a performance car. You're probably gonna get around 27 miles per gallon combined. This vehicle will actually do quite well on highway fuel economy, but not so much in town. In terms of ride quality, oh, that guy came out of nowhere. In terms of ride quality, it's average at best. You do feel and hear just about everything in the road, but it's not harsh. It's just not very well insulated is probably the best way to put it. This red light coming up, we're gonna get on the brakes hard, and now. Quite a bit of travel. They stopped the car okay. Not much else to report other than that. We're gonna hit the sewer cap here. Handles it fairly well. The Polestar 2 was a little bit more jarring than that, but I was also going quite a bit faster in that vehicle. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this drive, sedans aren't doing well. And there is another vehicle coming to replace this vehicle, but we just don't know if that fully electric vehicle is going to be coming to the United States. Probably not, as crossovers are the name of the game here. So in today's age of disappearing sedans in the market, you pretty much have to be really, really good at what you do in order to survive. The Koreans provide a lot of bang for the buck and provide a pretty cool design as well. I can't say that this vehicle does either of those things. The Japanese automakers, let's say with the Accord and the Camry and the Altima and the Maxima, all those vehicles are still around. And what do they do well? Well, most of them do reliability pretty well. They also have a huge cult following. The Mazda 6 recently also met its end. If you want to watch my partying review on that vehicle, go ahead. And that's a better sedan than this in every single way. And it is just, it's gone. It met its end a little bit too early. And for the most part, all the American manufacturers canceled their sedans. Volkswagen, one of the few legacy automakers still providing sedans. Watch my GLI review. Pretty enjoyable car overall. This car being a little bit bigger, doesn't feel quite as premium. It also doesn't have the power that smaller vehicle does in the Jetta GLI. So the Jetta and the Golf GTI kind of will be the non-crossover vehicles in the American market for Volkswagen to carry the torch until we get maybe an electric replacement of this car. Most buyers of Volkswagen here stateside are going to be buying their crossovers, the Atlas, the Taos. And I myself am a little bit excited for the ID Buzz electric van. So as I'm driving this vehicle in 2022, it does feel like it's 10 years old. And I meant, like, look at this SD card. Just like, you can pop that out. I mean, that's normal on a camera, but even full-size SD cards are being phased away with for micro SD cards. But anyways, this car just feels old sitting in it. It doesn't mean it's a bad car. It's just on the end of its legs here in North America. And there's just not a lot to say about the Passat. 50 years of heritage kind of being dumped down the drain, and all the Passat name recognition being dumped down the drain. I think it's just a sign of Volkswagen turning the page from their old combustion engine past, which is actually quite good if you can escape Dieselgate, and them looking forward into the future. I'll do some research to see what's coming out of that Chattanooga plant next. It is a pretty cool special edition that we're in, that we got, you know, the little tag on the seat, as well as the map and the cup holders, the limited badge, the unique paint color, the unique wheels to this model. Only 1,973 of these limited last edition 2022 Passats. There will not be another Passat in North America. I'll go out and on a limb and say I don't ever see the Passat nameplate ever coming back to America. Now, if this vehicle was as good as the Mazda 6 was and is, I'd probably be a little bit more sad, but this vehicle is so mediocre in every sense of the word that it's hard for me to really feel anything. This vehicle doesn't give me any sort of excitement or happiness or making me feel like a little kid or even making me feel like a well-to-do, well-off gentleman. It just doesn't tick any boxes other than just basic transportation and a very average experience. So Volkswagen, if you're watching this video, please bring back knobs. It just makes the user experience so much easier to live with, and it's not frustrating in any way. Getting in this vehicle is just plug and play. I don't have to learn a system or remember certain buttons and menus to flip through just to change certain settings. And Volkswagen, I don't think you're ever bringing the Passat nameplate back, but at least do the 50 years of this vehicle in this market justice by bringing a really good sedan through Volkswagen badge. We know you have good sedans on the Audi end, but bring a good sedan back to the Volkswagen lineup, a big full-size sedan. Make it electric, do what you got to do, but it is sad to see this Passat go out on a very mediocre note. But you guys typically know I cover Asian cars, so Volkswagen, they just send me cars, they show up in my driveway, I review them, and I am excited for the ID Buzz on a lot of levels as I am a family man. So there are things I'm looking forward to from the Volkswagen brand, Audi as well, but don't expect them to be a feature regularly on the channel, but it is a nice treat every once in a while. And it was a good, even though a very mediocre time of this vehicle, it was a good time to reminisce with this last edition of the old Passat. Putting it out to the pasture, Volkswagen. We'll miss you. Take care. Have a good day.